that makes a lot of sense. So, we'll go into it now. Jewell Loyd, the Storm's star, a star that's been with this franchise for a good amount of time, who was just about everything that this franchise had, and what was it, 2 seasons ago? Um, you know, has requested a trade. Um, we could talk, maybe we will talk about potential landing spots, but I mean, this is big for someone who has been a part of this franchise, who chose to sign on to a 2-year deal after a horrendous season, right? I personally, I was like, okay, I can understand after that season if Jewell wanted to leave. I thought it would have made a lot of sense. She had, won titles here. Um, she'd played really well here. She'd been part of a super team here. All that sort of stuff, made a great impact here. And it would have made sense for her to leave. She didn't do that. She signed a 2-year deal. Obviously, NECA and Skylar come here. Um, Gabby Williams signs on later into the season and things don't work out. And now, um, I think it was just hours after the reports of the investigation being finalized, we got news of the of Jewell requesting a trade. So, yeah, Christian, what are your thoughts on that? What do you know on that? Um, yeah, and I think we'll hold if we want to talk about potential destinations because that can be that's a whole other box to open, right? Um, talk about that afterwards. But just news of this because this isn't surprising necessarily, just from what we know or what we knew.
So honestly, I'm not surprised that trade request came up. Um, when I first found out about this entire situation, what what was gonna happen. Um, I originally said that it's either gonna be Coach Noe's gone or Jules leaves. Oh, sorry, wait, either Jewel requests a trade or no, he stays. So, obviously one happened and the other didn't. Not saying that one is justified and the other isn't, but I could understand why um, Jewel would want out as far as the situation overall. But also, I understand that some may think, oh wow, that seems kind of flippant, right? Right after the investigation comes out and it says there's a they say that nothing happened essentially, that they can't really prove it. That's still a big decision to undertake. A team that you spent the entire start of your career, you basically built your name, your image, kind of you grew up in Seattle if you really think about it. You matured as a person, as a player, and these decisions don't come light, you know. And I think that's one thing that we have to understand that players are people too, and this isn't just over, a feeling of being done wrong as far as on the court or anything of that nature, right? This is obviously so much more than that, and it's just hard to watch all this happen like from the sideline and understand that like people were done wrong in the situation, right? It's become like this kind of thing that's going on that's I wouldn't say a fad, but topics as far as the WNBA of issues that's going on people talk about, it's become one of those things that's just kind of just tossed to the side. And it's really disheartening to see that be a trend. But overall, I'm just yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the what really happens as far as you know people saying that Jewel might not actually get the trade, and they might try to put on the friendship T-shirt and get along. I don't think that's gonna happen, right? But yeah, it's a sad day to see a player kind of not forced out, but kind of like shown the door in a way. It's like, well, for a while, I was the main ticket, and like now it's not. It's just kind of sad to see.
You're
I
muted.
had myself muted there. That's crazy. No, Rowan, what did you say? I was gonna direct it to you. It's just kind of remarkable to see this day because I'll say this and then you can take over. But Jewell is another is one of several players in this city to wear the number 24 and be a great representation of that. I mean, it's uh, it was really remarkable, and Rowan saw all of those games too, 2 seasons ago, where it was Ezzy obviously was growing as well. Gabby was there. Jordan was in her rookie year, but it was a really ugly season. And again, she could have left. And I think everybody here in Seattle would have understood. Obviously, it would be tough in the beginning, but you would understand. I just don't think it's hard for me to, get past the fact that she doubled down. I remember I was in an Uber for some reason and I got the report and I called another, I was like, holy, I just couldn't believe it. So yeah, as Christian was saying, and as we've talked about in a group, this for her to feel like, hey, I can't be here anymore. It's a lot, and it's significant. So Rowan, yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, from just the perspective of, I remember when she was drafted here. I actually met her the day after she was drafted here. I went to a little basketball camp that she was putting on here in
Are you
Seattle.
serious?
A day, I
You
believe it
have
was a
pictures. You have
day, if
pictures of
not.
everything.
I do have a picture. It was, I believe it was like 2 days after she was drafted. She was there with her brother, barely talked. Like she just seemed so like, I mean, which I totally understand. She came out of college early, like, and it's just from that perspective, like 10 years later, which is almost 10 years later, which is terrifying for me to think about how long I've been involved with this team. But like, it's I think about, from a fan perspective, just having the majority of the time that she's been in, with the Storm, I was not doing, journalism, doing, I was not covering the team. And so just from that perspective, I just think it's really interesting to see someone that I think a lot of fans felt would be another Sue that would stay from her for her whole career, which everyone thought the same with Brianna Stewart. We see how that changed. But also I was going to bring up from a fan perspective, because I don't really remember seeing actual reporting. I'm sure that there was, but before I covered the team, I think everyone knew that there was the potential for her to want to go back to Chicago. Like that was a conversation, I would say, starting maybe even in 2019 or 2020, of just like, it felt like something that people just kind of knew that might be what she does to end her career. So from that perspective, again, have to go and look at some reporting on that, but I just coming from that perspective, I know that that was a conversation. So it's not completely shocking. Like I think that in my mind, I always thought that that might be something. Now the way that Chicago's looking, I know we weren't going to talk landing spots, but the way Chicago's looking, I think that um, as they've had a lot of coaching turnover and all of that, it seemed like maybe that wouldn't end up happening for Jewell. Maybe it was just like, now she's in Seattle, she's going to stay in Seattle. But yeah, I guess, I mean, it's it's also very um striking, I guess, to see that her tune has changed so much. I think I never felt like any of her praise for Noelle Quinn and the coaching staff was ever forced or fake in the past. I truly believe that they had a really great relationship. They played together. They, you know, turned into her coach. She stayed an extra 2 years during that tough time, knowing and trusting trusting Noe, and I never felt like that was fake. And so now to see that, just the way that the chain of events happened, I don't think that anyone could interpret that in a way other than, Jewell and Noelle are not on those same terms anymore. There's no post to say, thank you, Seattle, I'm requesting a trade. It really, and I'm interested to see what that's like, because again, from from a fan perspective and a fan base perspective, right, 2 seasons ago, it was like, oh my gosh, like, is the Storm going to go back to how they were pre Brianna Stewart, pre Jewell, which was rough. And I think that it's interesting. I've seen on some of the fan Facebook pages that some of the fans are honestly feeling a little bit hurt by the way that it's gone down, because it's kind of like, it's like Jewell has given so much to the city, and the city saw her so much as like, okay, well, if Brianna Stewart's leaving, you're our hope now. And now that she's thinking of leaving, it's just kind of like, yeah, it's just a really, I guess my point is that um again, if nothing was found to have actually happened, I think that Jewel's roots here are so deep that I think that you can't say that there wasn't anything that hurt her relationship so badly that she would have stayed. I think it was very, you know, intentional the way that she went about requesting the trade and that news coming out.
Sue Bird retired. I've always said, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I was convinced that Sue Bird could have played a couple more years. I don't think she would have been superstar production Sue Bird from 15, 20 years ago. I mean, who can do something they did 20 years ago at 40? Put your hands up. Like, well, no one else call us 40 anywhere close. But well, damn, I'll be 28 next year. Shit. Uh, but like so I tell everyone that listen, I'm convinced that Sue Bird can play some more years. Stewie leaving Seattle after everything that she's been through with that team, like I said, like for Jewell, basically growing with the team, as a player and a person. For those three players to all be gone, there has to be a common denominator. Like it has to be. And I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's just the truth.
Yeah.
Three Hall of Famers gone.
Yeah. I mean, I do know that Sue, it sounds like she knew she would be able to play some more years, and she was like, I want to retire when I'm at my, when I'm not like, I don't want to be horrible when I retire. But you're right. I mean, I think that the first kind of knock against, or like the first kind of idea that maybe something was not super right in the organization was Brianna Stewart leaving. I didn't take that as much as I'm taking it with Jewell, because same thing with Jewell. Again, we know that with Stewie, the idea of going back to New York was an idea that wasn't out of the question, in the same way with Jewell, where it's like, I think a lot of people, are like, oh, sure, I'd love to go back to my hometown team. But you're right. I think that this is really, you have three of your number one draft picks, who two of them who have decided to leave the team, very blatantly.
Within 3 years. Like Stewie has not been gone that long. Like this is
Mhm.
only her second full season away from Seattle. Like, listen, man, I don't know, man. That's why I
Yeah,
sound like
no,
Alex Jones.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say a few things. I don't have Rowan's basketball camp story, but the 10th interview I ever did to get CSS started was with Jewell Loyd, that fuck ass hat. Oh, I said it. There we go. Um, but anyway, so that was that. So yeah, Jewell will always be a part of this company and how it's grown. But no, to go back to what Rowan was saying about going back to Chicago, what I was told before she signed was that it wasn't the right time to go back to Chicago. Well, to go to Chicago. Sorry, I keep saying back. It just wasn't the right time for this guy. And hey, maybe with Angel and Camila Cardoso and Kennedy Carter, maybe that is the right time. That, and I think we can talk about destinations because I mean, I, why not? I don't know. We haven't had the round table together for a while, but yeah, you guys have both said it in different ways, but it just doesn't happen like this where someone who has grown up with a franchise, who blatantly decided to stay with a franchise despite the dark days she had been through, just says, I'm done. You know what I mean? Just like there are flippant people where it's like, oh yeah, I feel this way. Jewell Loyd does not seem like a flippant person, right? Like, so yeah, like Christian was saying, there's a common denominator here, it feels like. And um, I mean, I can't turn my
Like,
camera around here. I was just gonna say it's there's those pictures you've got of Jewell, Sue. And Stewie, all this is a different era now. There's a mural
Yeah,
in your Climate Pledge Arena that has those three, if I'm correct. Right? This is a different time now. And like Christian said, there's no friendship shirt where we're all gonna come together and we're gonna shake hands. We're good. Like, let's go play now. Let's go chase the title. That's not how this is gonna
yeah.
work. I'd like to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. It's just not how it is. So yeah.
Like both of you have said it, like you just said it. Jules not a flipping person. And I think Ron, you said that she was not the type of person to fly by the seat of her pants. Essentially, you watch the way that she spoke. I think it was media day, possibly either media day or the opening of the CDP. Basically, I got everything I needed. I wanted Pokey to be assistant GM, got that. I wanted near max, almost a max deal, got that. I wanted to play with my friends, I got that. To leave the very next season, something happened. Like, I'm sorry, you don't just get the bag of gold and then just decide, what, this isn't what I want. I'm out. Like, nah, I'm sorry.
Well, and also, I mean, I think that pre 2023 season, the huge conversation was, is Jewell really cut out to be a leader of this team? Is she gonna survive? And we know that that season was rough. That was not, because of Jewell's leadership or anything like that. But my point with that is just, it's clear that if she signed a 2-year deal after that season, she was signing up for continuing to be that leader. And I think that I saw something, again, I'm going off of things that I've seen, people talking about, and I saw something about like, oh, well, is it a thing of Jewell realized that she wants to go to a different team where she doesn't have to do what maybe they were expecting her to do, and just disproving that, of saying she clearly was up for the challenge. And I think that some of her leadership skills have been called into question just slightly at times because of her personality. And now with all of this coming out, it's kind of like, is there like a lack of commitment to the team, right? And I think we're all saying absolutely, she has been through everything with this team, so high, so low. And so there can't, it doesn't seem possible to me that there's not a reason for this very sudden departure and ending of a contract too. It's not even like she let the contract end and then said, on to something new. Like, this is very blatant. I'm upset with the organization. I don't want to be here anymore.
She has $250,000 sitting on her contract left. This is not just overnight. No, I don't want to be here anymore. Um, I think the thing that I would, when it comes to Jewell, and I've only been on this beat for one season, but from people that I've talked to, players, family members, or anybody really, everyone has told me one simple thing: Jewell knows how to build relationships with everyone and knows how to like differentiate between those people. And the fact that people is calling the question her leadership, when I know for a fact that she knows how to basically give everyone what they need as far as a relationship and a mentor, a leader, different things. Some people need to be get in their chest or physical. Hey, get in the game. Some people police decide, hey, this is what you did wrong. Blah, blah, blah. Some people need that type of different leadership. She's always been able to do one or the other, and to see some people just say that she can't be what Seattle needs to do that is like, well, if that's the case, they wouldn't have gave her a contract for $500,000. Like, sorry, that doesn't happen.
I actually think I have a quote in some story that I wrote, probably 2023 season, of Jordan Horston saying exactly that, of saying Jewell has came to me and asked me what do you need to feel motivated, and how can I be the best leader to you? And I just like, I loved that quote, and I just happened to see that a few days ago, and that totally speaks to what you're saying.
I want to go in here really quickly and we've talked about um how this isn't something that just happens, and I know I mentioned earlier how, a lot of this stuff has been mucked up. Players, people have talked about how it might be player to player. At least in the ESPN article that Alexa put out 2 days ago about seeking the trade, their source said that Lloyd's complaint, the complaint had nothing to do with either NECA or Skylar. So I just wanted to point that out specifically because of the talk we've had about there being a common denominator. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Wait, did that just come out today?
No, the 2 days ago, with Alex, it was kind of buried in there. It was talking about Jewell and about how, like you were saying, about how at the beginning of the season it was well, especially I'm sorry to go back to it, the facility, because for so long it was
Yeah.
SPU, and we'll have to show you one of these days whenever you're out here. SPU is not a great facility, let alone for a professional. I know people who go to SPU and they complain about it, right? So, like, to be a professional, to be a franchise that has won 4 titles, and to be practicing out of what, for better or for worse, is a rundown college gym, that's a big upgrade. So, like you said, to get the play with your friends, pokey, all this and that, to, like, you know, again, common denominator. Wanted to add that, point that out.
I actually did not know that Alexa put that in that article, and I'm pretty sure it's because of what we put out. But also, trying to be mean, people don't read. Like, I know people see names and it's like, oh man, that's got to be the issue of it. No, it's just byproducts of the entire environment. Like the fact that even had to be stated. Hey, it's not Jewell and NECA. Sorry, it's not Skylar and NECA. That's not what the original report was even about. So that's
Yeah.
what we keep talking about, how far it's gotten to the point where these things have to be clarified. And it's like, folks are getting off scot free. I'm sorry, man. Like, that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that's why I think it's so important that folks who are close to these situations, who are actually around these teams, say these things, because now it's folks who, just because whether it's the wave that the WNBA and women's sports are on, um, or they just think they've got an opinion, can, again, my microphone, and I can sit here or I can even do this. I can do a little TikTok, like, here's my thoughts. It's like anybody can do that now, and like you're saying, because nobody gets held to anything responsible, and like you said, nobody reads, or they just pick it up. I'll get people who are like, "Yo, is Ezzy playing tonight?" And I'm like, I was at practice this morning. She practiced fine. She's like, "Oh, so and so said this." I was like, "So and so isn't reporting on the goddamn team." That's just to emphasize again, like you were saying, things get dragged too far out of what they really are, and that obviously has happened with such a crucial investigation. So yeah, I mean, do you guys want to leave your thoughts on where Jewell might end up? Because I mean, there are teams will go to bat. Teams will obviously go to bat and want to add a player like Jewell Loyd. I don't think there's any doubt about that. She might not have hit certain marks or whatever she said at the end of the season, but she's obviously still a star elite caliber player. And there will be, I'm sure, contenders, um, or maybe not, teams who need a player like that to juice their lineup, who will come knocking. So I don't know. What do we um yeah, I don't know. What do we think? Thoughts on a potential landing spot? Because obviously, like Christian has said, we've gotten limited information. Like Rowan said, there's been no, hey, I'm leaving. Like, I'm making the intent. Like, all of we've gotten is those reports. We knew this was, likely coming. Do we have any thoughts on a potential landing spot?
I mean, again, speculation, but I think when Chicago's been the conversation, the implied conversation, at this point, I'm not thinking that that will happen, which a couple seasons ago, I would have been like, oh, clearly she's going to Chicago. But I think even when you look at the pieces that they have, Angel Reese, who's obviously their most well-known player at this point, has made it clear that she was not happy with the firing of Teresa Witherspoon. Like it's clear that the players that are playing there are not huge fans of the organization and the way that its run. And I think especially after hearing how big the CBP was for Jewell, how big these things are, especially later, as she's getting later in her career. I think that those things are huge. And so I don't really have a speculation of where else, but I am going to say that for now, I think Chicago's out of the running. I think that it just, at this point in her career, she, as you said, will have a lot of options. And I don't think that she will just go for moving to her hometown team if it doesn't include the organization itself being better and run better, and if the players aren't happy with the way it's being run.
Great that you say that. I thought about the team they ran out, future Hall of Famers, Candace Parker, MVP Finals recipient, Emma Meeseman, the only player ever to come off the bench and win a Finals MVP in 2019. I think about that all the time. Like, how? That's how you know she was hooping, man. Emma Meeseman, Courtney Vandersloot. There's just a plethora of players that just left, and you can say they have all their own different reasons. Courtney wanted to, win again. Candace wanted to be closer to family. At the root of it all is inept ownership and just ineffective management. To say, put it in nice terms.
You have to include
So
Elena
for
Deladon in that too.
Elena Deladon, like how did I forget? Oh, Kalia Copper. Yeah,
Yeah.
can you edit that out? Yeah, please. I said Cooper. Jesus, what the hell? Kalia Copper. So just so many stars that have left because of this team, and it's crazy to think that Chicago is probably the third biggest market in America, one of the biggest markets in the world as far as making a name for yourself. And players who decide, that doesn't really matter for me because you guys aren't doing what I need. So for the same reasons Rowan said, Chicago's out. um, I think it's a little early for speculation, but I mean, only so many teams that have facilities, only so many teams that have good leadership so far, good ownership that have shown dedication to women's sports and the WNBA. I don't know, man. What's the she doesn't go to Vegas or Phoenix or a team like that? I mean, I would lean closer to Phoenix. At least from what I know, she's pretty close to DT, and a lot of players may. Oh, the fan aspect is that people don't like DT or players don't respect DT, and I think that's crazy because DT is like tight with Asia Wilson. So like, I don't get where that part comes from. But you know, any other team, I think it's obviously a team that has facilities. That's really it. But I don't know. The fact that we're even talking about this is unfortunate. But like we always say, that's gonna be one or the other. So here we are. No.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just wild that this has been a wild ride. I mean, just from obviously a historic WNBA season, wild to at least we'll go to the Storm aspect. Open that facility to bring in two absolute legends in Skylar Diggins-Smith and Neko Gumake. Obviously not have the year that was hoped for or thought of, perhaps. And now we're here with this. This was, I think, if you just look at it on paper, by the time we got done with Texas reviews, it's like, all right, you need to bring NECA back, you need to bring Gabby back, find a way to juice the bench and then call it good and try to run it back with that group. There was the talks about, hopefully you take a Liberty style jump. Liberty didn't accomplish what they wanted in year one, they got it in year two. And now it's like, how different will this roster look by the time that we get to training camp? I mean, in a few minutes, we've got whatever the hell the production will be for the expansion draft. Just one of the Twitter follows I've got, it's Maddie. It's like PHX Son on Twitter. It was like the Hunger Games where it's they show the face up on the screen. That's the expansion draft. So you've got that, which as Christian and I talked about, I think we've all talked about it. The Storm aren't really gonna lose that much, I don't imagine. In the expansion draft, unless something happens, at least in terms of Seattle expansion draft, the Kraken couldn't do much because a few years before that, the Vegas Golden Knights swindled a bunch of people in trades. I don't know if Golden State's can do anything trade wise. They could. Um, but yeah, this is going to be a very odd off season for the Seattle Storm because you've got to, and again, unless people decide to put on their friendship shirt, which again, it's like 1% chance. You've got to trade Jewell Loyd, hopefully recoup enough assets for that. Who has the assets to afford that? Where will she sign off on? Be like, yes, I want to go here. Are you going to be able to bring back Nneka and Gabby, which they've both talked positively about the franchise, but that doesn't guarantee everything. And then how do you juice the bench? Does Victoria Vivians want to come back? Do you want her to come back? To join her homes? All these things. So, I mean, I don't know. We're in a state of disarray, right? This
Our
is
boy
the
Charles
round
is a
table.
comedian.
You know what I mean? Where are we going to be at by training camp?
No idea.
Right?
I mean, I was going to say
No
that.
idea.
Back a point guard.
I mean, this could be a stretch, and again, we're not in this, in this time period at all. But a far stretch could be, I mean, as we've talked about, so you have Stewie, you have Jewell. I'm not including Sue in that just because, she did like the retirement part, I think is a little bit different than with Jewell and Stewie, but like, will this potentially affect anything free agency wise for the Storm? You see someone like Jewell, which I think again, everyone knows she has not had a problematic history at all. I think players really look up to her, trust her judgment. So that's one piece. And another piece that I brought up earlier is I do think that this story is not far from over because we still don't know what other people are going to do. And I think that, yeah, again, thinking very far down the road, you're right. Nneka, Gabby have spoken, highly of the organization. But if everyone else leaves, there's still, like you said, there needs to be some more bench production, and you get that in free agency and trades. And if players are looking and saying, okay, something had to have happened that was enough for Jewell to be traded. Do I really want to go somewhere like this and play under this coaching staff? I mean, there are a lot more layers to it.
What's interesting with that though, right, is because yes, that makes a lot of sense, right? If this was a team that was, just say, somehow this issue happened in 23, right? Jewell leaves in free agency. I think it's a more of a like skull and crossbones, do not come here situation then. But now it's like, okay, Skylar Diggins-Smith is here. She wants to be here. Nneka has talked positively. Gabby Williams has talked positively. Like, I'm not saying it's not to be like, oh, players will. I'm sure there will be players who are like, yeah, I don't like that. Like, I'm not happy with that situation. How does that affect me? What if I go there and if I'm kind of like pushed out, right? Because again, at the same time though, um, you've got these key players. You've got the WNBA BP and WNBPA. I can spell, I promise. President. You've got Skylar Diggins-Smith, who's posting continuously that she's at the facility. She's promoting a new shirt, which great, sure. You've got Izzy Magbagor, one of the, it's so incredible how young Izzy is. Like, I feel like there's different pros and cons here, right? There's two different camps you can be in a way, right? So that is interesting though to think about, right? Because you can be like, hey, this is a franchise cornerstone who has been here through the ups and downs, has won titles here, played with the current coach, but she wants out now. But on the other hand, you've got two players who are legends in the game, respectfully. You've got their own training facility now, right? Christian, what do you think about that? Like, because it's never cut and dry, right?
And unfortunately, a lot of people think it is, as far
Yeah.
as like the departures and everything that went into it. And it can be, but if you're a real WNBA fan, I'm pretty sure you know that it's not. Or you cover the WNBA, you've been just been around the league for some time. You know that there's always more than meets the eye. Um, and as far as this, like Rowan said, like, I can't imagine someone having it all. Like imagine, let's say, okay, we're gonna go to the Mall of America, right? One of the greatest malls I've ever been to. Like I've been in there before. I'm like, every time I go in there, it's like I just get like anxious as hell because there's so much stuff around. And then it's like, all right, we're gonna hit up the strip mall on 79th and also like you guys don't know Chicago, but no, I probably wouldn't want to go there compared to Mall of America. So that's kind of the drop off of a lot of franchises, unfortunately, the WNBA. Hashtag no more cheap owners. We should put that on the t-shirt. Bring the money. If you don't, I mean, unfortunately, the W will never do that. But if we really want to get somewhere, you have to get like these other teams. I'm sorry, Portland, Toronto, eventually a Denver team. Um, these teams are going to have facilities built for them. And as much as people want to say, "Oh, well, look at the Valkyries; they have the support of the Warriors," a lot. That may be true, but they also have one of everything of their own. Like they have their own building. I'm not sure what else you want. Like they're doing good already. I think so. So if you got these type of options, no disrespect, but why would I want to go to the Dream? Love Atlanta, good wings.
That's a way to get me, at least in the wing department.